Honestly, Fanny, I don't see why Father only allows the company of the Rushworths. I'm sure he would enjoy that of the Grants just as much as we do. I do believe he rather likes the quiet that such a small circle brings, Edmund. I'm not convinced it has been made miserable, but rather that it has been returned to how it was before. I guess, but I rather like it, but I guess I'm not like the others. Do you wish to be complimented, dear Fanny? Well, everyone knows you should get no such from me, but you should only go and ask Father. Everyone... Do not blush so. He thinks you pretty. There's nothing wrong with that. Hush, I'm sure he is bored of my chatter by now. You are bad at receiving compliments, just as Miss Crawford said the other day. Oh, Miss Crawford is so amazing. This Mr. Rushworth is not at all as I expected. Maria, are you sure you wish to marry this man? Oh, Father, don't be silly. As you've said, he's a great match for me. And, he's young. He can change. Of course, I still want to marry Mr. Rushworth. So we have main characters, which are Fanny and Edmund, and we have the supporting characters, who are Sir Thomas, Maria, and Mr. Rushworth. And then we have talked of characters, which is Julia, the Grants, Henry, and Mary Crawford. So in terms of setting, this chapter is a little all over the place, because it's got both the conversation between Fanny and Edmund, and then there's Maria's wedding and departure to Brighton. So during the conversation between Fanny and Edmund, it's October, and therefore it's probably around the same time at Maria's wedding, because she wanted it to happen as soon as possible. So the places that these two events take place are likely to be similar, but different. So Fanny and Edmund's conversation will have taken place in the Bertram home, but probably a room of the main house rather than Fanny's apartments. Then Maria's wedding takes place in the town, being conducted by Dr. Grant, and then she removed to Sotherton and then Brighton. And it's interesting that Maria's wedding is a lot more public of an occasion, and it's in a lot more public setting. So the thing that this reminded me of was Greek mythology, which is a pretty wide thing, but there are two specific myths which correspond well to the two different parts of the chapter. So the first myth is the battle between the gods and the Titans, like the young and the old. So it's similar to the conversation Fanny and Edmund had about the differences now that Sir Thomas had returned. So a lot of which are about the differences between the young and the old in terms of societal preference and what they enjoy doing in their free time, basically. And then the second myth was the Hades and Persephone one, which reminded me of the marriage between Maria and Mr. Rushworth, because in both cases it was essentially an arranged marriage by the father, with Zeus going, oh yeah, kidnapper, it'll be fine, to Hades. It wasn't fine. And Sir Thomas going, yeah, he's a great match, very rich, And in both cases there was an opportunity for the union to be dissolved, but both unions still occurred. I liked that Sir Thomas asked Maria if she was really sure that she wanted to marry Mr. Rushworth, because even though she was so influenced that she was unlikely to say, no, I don't want to marry him, it was still good that Sir Thomas checked, although his reasons were a bit more iffy. And then I didn't like that Fanny and Edmund were having a nice conversation, and then he started talking about Mary Crawford, and that kind of ruined the mood. I thought it would appear as if I wanted to set myself off at their expense by showing a curiosity and pleasure in his information which he must wish his own daughters to feel. So here she's explained to Edmund why she did not further question Sir Thomas on the subject of the slave trade, although she had wished to, by explaining that she felt it would seem as if she was trying to set herself above her cousins. This shows her precarious position in the household and how she always keeps her station in mind and doesn't want to make herself seem higher than those to whom she owes such a debt of gratitude. So this is done through the use of his own daughters, which highlights the fact that Fanny is not the daughter of Sir Thomas and therefore isolates her from the family and hints at her feelings of precariousness and not belonging. So the picture on the left represents the arguments between young and old and the differences between them. And then the one on the right obviously represents the marriage between Maria and Mr. Rushworth, which I felt were the two key points to the chapter.